to check. Okay, so first question for you.
Let me hit this thing. Says, I'll be sure I got it. Okay.
Okay, so first question for you is, if you could be an animal, any animal, what do you think your personality matches most?
Probably a dog.
A dog? Why?
Yeah. Well, I'm a pretty friendly guy, but I let my wild side live. I don't try to suppress myself. I don't have to now at this age. I'm 71 now. My wild dog years, young dog years are past. But dogs are friendly and they're good companions and they're very loyal. And I think that's pretty much how I am. I've been married to the same lady going on 50 years, and my kids still like to come around and visit with me. And I've been living in this little hopeless town most of my life. I was raised here, went off and wound up back here about 1981.
Okay.
And I have a really great place I live in. We've been here, I don't know, since 1984. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah, I guess that's going on 40 years in February. So I'm just, I'm settled. I pretty much stick with what I got, and I'm not too big on traveling. I've done a lot of traveling in my life, but I kind of like being where I am. I'm not looking for change in any way.
When you say wild side, what does that look like now that you're open?
That's probably when I'm playing music. I channel my inner Jerry Lee Lewis into a lot of what I do, and but I'm not very wild now. I was when I was younger. I would stay out late and run the roads and out playing music and all the crazy stuff that goes along with that. But I don't really have that side. Not very active anymore.
And then, if you were to write an autobiography about your life, what would you call it?
I have no idea. I've never thought. I guess I'll call it my life. That would probably be, yeah. Maybe in the course of writing it, I'd come up with some sort of title. But autobiography, that's supposed to be about your life. So that's about the best I can think of right now is my life, for what it's worth.
What was your childhood like?
I had a real happy childhood. It had the usual monsters and uh, fears, most of us have. But I grew up in a pretty nice little neighborhood about a mile from where I am right now.
Oh, wow.
And I learned, pretty early, you had to fight and you had to kind of stand up for yourself. I wasn't too big on fighting, but it got to a point where my dad was like, you either do it, to this guy, or when you get home, I'm gonna do it to you. So, and then I kind of got where I enjoyed it a little bit, but never really much. Now my
You mean
son,
fighting
he's
as
a
in,
fighter.
I'm
I
sorry,
mean, like hitting each other with fists and taking each other down to the ground and
for
pinning
like
one another.
fun?
Oh no, I never. Well, yeah, I would some. I mean, I used to practice judo with a friend, and we'd have a good time doing that out in a field. But I much preferred like always enjoyed violent sports like football, um, rugby. I played that later in life.
Okay.
Basketball, but I fouled too much, and I could I wasn't that good. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed that, but it was in a controlled setting. The thing where you get angry and you want to really uh, damage somebody. I never really was much into that. If
But your
pushed to
dad,
a point, huh?
your dad was?
No, I don't know about him. I mean, yeah, he was a fella from up in the mountains, very educated, very accomplished. He was an
Okay.
attorney,
Okay.
um, but he grew up poor in a furniture mill town, and you just have to, you have to have a nurture a side of you that's willing to use violence if you have to.
Mm.
There's always a last resort. I mean, that's to me, it's pretty stupid. Uh, but some people I knew, there were a lot of guys around here, just really enjoyed that. And I I would walk away from stuff a lot of times.
Because
That's
you were scared or you just didn't want to?
Well, no, I was scared. It's just stupid. I mean, it's like once that ball starts rolling, I guess I would be scared of the consequences, but you can get permanently damaged, lose an eye,
That's
um,
true.
you
Yeah.
know, things that could happen to you, or you could do that to someone else. If the rage took over, and I just didn't want to go there. I mean, I've been there before, and
Mm.
I didn't find it that satisfying.
Okay. And then
So, but it
is
was just something in the environment. You sometimes you just had to go
right.
there, and it's regrettable, but that's just how people are. I don't think that's changed, to be honest with you. Now,
Is
my son, he enjoyed it. He's just now he's in his probably 46 years old.
okay.
He was working as a bouncer at a rock and roll club up until just a few
Wow.
months back, and he's learning now. Like it's good I didn't hit that guy tonight.
Mm.
We sort of have to take our own security with us when we go out and play because places we're at they don't mess with that too much.
Okay.
Um, but it's not a good thing. I'm a peaceful person at heart. I don't want to hurt anybody. I mean, even when I played sports, sometimes I hurt other players, and I didn't get any pleasure out of that. I was just playing a game. But it
Yeah.
was kind of fun. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I was gonna say, do you have a fond memory that you remember as a child that you
Oh
think,
yeah, sitting under there's a big poplar tree that was in our yard. It was probably 200 years old,
oh wow.
and from the time I was a kid, I would hang around under that, and it's a huge tree. I mean, and I'd find me a place, and I'd have my toy soldiers out there and stick them in the tree, or friends would come up and just hang out. The neighborhood was, there were a lot of kids in it, and there were some pretty interesting people there.
Hmm.
We played a lot of sports. Um, we were interested in music, the latest records. Some of the older guys I remember playing musical instruments. One man in particular, he was a man. He's dead now, but he was probably in college, and I remember him playing a guitar, and I was just mesmerized by that. I said, I want to do that one of these days somehow. And lo and behold, when I was about 18, I started doing that and hadn't quit
Teach
since.
yourself?
In many ways, I started out teaching myself. I got a banjo first. My dad gave me a banjo when I was about 14. And I learned a little bit about making some chords and finger picking. There's Earl Scruggs. I had a little Earl Scruggs instruction book with a record, like a 45 RPM. And but I was more interested in playing ball at that time. But I did stick with it enough to where I kept I understood the principle. And then I looked at a guitar and I'm like, well, that's the same thing, but it's just got 2 extra strings.
Mm.
I had a 5-string banjo, but I took the 5th string off because I didn't understand. It just got in the way. So in college, it was like the end of my freshman year, and I just got a book, started learning some chords, and then started driving everybody nuts with it. But and then I ended up like my second year in college, I was around other guys that were playing,
Okay.
and some women, young women. Mostly a guy thing though. We'd all be sitting in a dorm room, smoking weed, and drinking beer, and playing these songs, breaking the strings, and going ahead and play with 4 or 5 on there. Uh, but I was around some people that taught me, and over the years, I'd always try to have a good lead guitar player, and some of those people taught me more about the instrument.
Mm.
But I've learned a lot on my own. I've learned a lot from watching, and I've still got a hell of a lot to learn. But I'm able to carry a song and hopefully make it interesting for the audience when I do play. I got a great band. I got an amazing bass player, and my son plays drums, the ex bouncer, and he's a hell of a drummer and a really good fiddle player and a very good couple of good lead guitar players that I work with. I go out and do a duo with this one fella, David Niblock. And then for the band, there's a local guy here. We're all local guys. We don't.
Mm-hmm.
We travel some. Mostly when I travel, I'm solo because it's just the money thing.
Yeah.
But we keep it pretty close. I don't have a big stable of people I can go to. But these guys are very dedicated. I'm very lucky to have them. And I don't know how much longer I got, to be doing this, but it seems like they'll be hanging with me. They're my son's age. They're
Mm.
mostly in their. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, was there something your mom or dad said to you that you remember, or advice they gave you that you still carry with you now?
Well, my dad, I do remember. Um, I was at a military school up in Virginia. I was 16, and I was trying. I was. I didn't do well down here in the public school. It was just too weird for me. But I remember taking a test, and I was talking to him. I didn't know how I'd done. He said, "Well, did you do your best?" I said, "Yeah, I did. I studied and I prepared and I did the best I could." He said, "Well, that's all you can do then. If you did your best, just don't worry about it." And I aced it. I mean, I did very well. I really made good grades there and turned my whole life around. I got disciplined and I got disciplined enough to graduate. I wasn't too big on the military part of it, which is weird because when I went there, I had an idea I wanted to go into the military. Um, my dad had been in the Army Air Corps. His dad had fought in World War One, and he was a bugler in the artillery. And then I had relatives that fought in the Civil War. Some of them were deserters, which is some of the slaveholders fought. The mountain boys that didn't have slaves, they didn't give a damn. So they got out of there as quick as they could. But so that was just kind of a tradition. I had an uncle that taught English at West Point, and I was up there when I was a kid, and I was just starstruck by the uniforms and the drills, the parades and that kind of thing. But when I got into the military school and started dealing with military structure and the kind of politics that's involved. Um, I kind of rebelled against it, but I still managed to get out, and won a bunch of awards, which was kind of surprising. But and then I managed to get into a decent school because I wanted to go to college. Like uh, our daughter went to college. We went to University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. That's where I met my wife, and our daughter wound up going there. My dad had gone there, and a bunch of uncles.
Okay.
But our son, he didn't want to go to college, and it was a big struggle. He's like, I want to be a rock and roller. I want to be a musician and be an artist. And and the whole family was like, when is he going to go to college? When is he's got to do it? And finally, I just said, he ain't going to college. It's not for him, And that's the way I feel about it. Some people should go, and I wanted to go, but if you don't really know why you're going, if it's just so you can get some theoretical job, you might be selling yourself short.
Did
I've seen
you
a
go
lot
to
of
college though? You
huh?
went to college, right?
Yeah, I did. I
Okay.
went to college, graduate school, law school. I did all of that. My brother's PhD in South Carolina. He was one of them that was, like pushing for Robert, my son, our son, to go to college. And if I'm just like, it's not happening. Just let him be what he's going to be. And he's done all right.
You became a lawyer, and then why did you switch over to music from there?
Well, I only did it for 35 years. So
It's a
I
long
just,
time.
it, I went into law. My dad was a lawyer, and he was always bugging me about going to law school, and I didn't want to do it. I went to graduate school, studied creative writing. I got in some of these arts council programs where I was, getting grants. It's kind of a good thing, but I felt very stifled in it. And I'm finally like, I had a son, he's about a year old, and it's like, I got to provide a better life for him. So, and I thought, well, it might be kind of fun doing that. I was tired of being a government funded artist. I ain't got nothing against government funding. I mean, it helped us out a lot, but I just felt like they had a certain control on me, and I was like, well, I'm gonna have some real. I never really had any life experiences, that were worth writing about. So I said, well, I'm gonna, go out here and mix it up and, have some experiences. And a lot of them were absolutely horrible experiences, and then some of them were just amazingly cool. I mean, I got to admit, I did a lot of trial work. But it was like I never would jump on the advertising thing. I just found that I still find it utterly disgusting. And politics changed. I was always a Democrat. I am now this day. And that's the way it was when I started, like in the early 80s. But then gradually it was amazing how they all became Republicans because that's what you had to be. So I lost influence in the criminal courts. Well, I had done pretty well at it, and so eventually I would like go from one, like I wound up doing appeals for indigent people in prison, and that was pretty cool because it was all reading and writing.
You
And
were
I'd
a
have to go,
defense? Was it a
yeah,
defense
defense. I
attorney?
was
Okay.
always, I did a little private prosecuting, but not much. But the best part, I'm gonna tell you what it's like. About 1999, my wife Linda had wound up coming to work for me. She was a school teacher, and it was the same thing. It was like the system became so politicized, and it was just tough on her because she was trained in methods that were very different from what the way they wanted it to be. She went from like an open school approach where you kind of let kids find their way on their own, learn to think for themselves, to desks all lined up, everybody's like robots going in the same direction at the same time. So I said, well, one of the secretaries in her office left. I said, well, you come work with me. But she's smart as hell, and other than marrying me, but we started working together. Even while at one point while she was still teaching, and I realized like she had an incredible talent for doing the work. So we eventually wound up opening our own office. I was the attorney. She was I hate to use the word secretary. She was very active. I mean, she was a hell of a lot more than a secretary.
Okay.
And we wound up probably the last 15 or so years just representing people for Social Security disability, and which was very interesting and enjoyable, and it was also very lucrative. Um, we did real well, won a whole lot of cases, made a lot of money, but then politics came along. Republicans take over the House of Representatives, and that's where the funding comes up. And all of a sudden, these judges, they bring in these new judges who were, criticizing me for making too much money. Before it used to be they criticized me because I wasn't worth a damn at it. But then when I got good and started making money, it was, I was catching flack from them. And it's still my nature is to, fight on, keep pushing. But then it just got to where after a while they just pretty much shut the whole program down. They quit having hearings for people. And it was, I had to get paid, and where we were getting paid, pretty regularly, all of a sudden we weren't getting anything in. So that was by the time I was about 65 years old. And I said, well, hell, let's just get my Social Security. And I was already playing a lot. I started playing seriously about 1990. So, for like 25 years, I was doing that and practicing law.
Okay.
I had a lot of, I had a lot of nights where I didn't get much sleep, but I was having a good time with it. And I was actually having some success as a musician. So, when I started drawing my Social Security retirement, which is pretty good, I said, I'm not doing this shit anymore, or excuse my language. But so I remember I went out to Oregon and Washington and played with a bass player and fiddle player. And Linda, Wonder Woman, she took care of shutting the whole office down, packing everything up, writing all these letters.
Oh wow.
And then when I got back, it was a whole new world, and it hadn't been easy, but it's been. I think we both agree that we're much happier now, a lot less stressed out, and as far as being able to make a living, it's actually working out. It's
And
touchy.
Linda's your wife, right?
Linda's my wife.
Yeah, they're talking about. Okay.
So I do the painting and going out and playing, and she takes care of the house and cooking and getting groceries and paying the bills, watching the money. It's a team. I mean, we've been, partners, best friends like that for ever since college. That's where I met her. And I've been very blessed with that. That's probably the best thing that's ever happened to me. But going by my dad, he asked me about something. He said, I told you, that it was like do your best if you can. My mom, we had a tough relationship. I'm not saying she wasn't a wise person, but I really, the latter part of our life was so contentious and unpleasant that I mean, I remember the last thing she ever said to me was, "Don't let the door hit you in the ass when you leave." That's kind of how, my last memory of Mama. Right before that was "Get out, stooge," which I thought was, but yeah, it's very hurtful. And hell, I forgive her. I mean, she had mental illness, drug addiction, a lot of problems. She had a bad raising. Um, so it was very easy to forgive her, and I still love her in my heart. I never shed one tear for her, which is kind of weird, but um,
No, it's understandable. So then, for you, what is the meaning of life to you?
the meaning of life is to do good, to follow what Jesus said. I mean, He's my guide. He's my spiritual guide through the New Testament. Is to basically do unto others as you have them do to you. Love God, love your neighbor, love yourself. It's all about love. If we, I mean, I feel like my purpose in life is not to spread hate. Oh, I get pissed. I mean, I get mad. Um, and I will definitely express it, but I always think there's got to be a place where people can come together and settle their differences. Because I saw a lot of that, and I don't see it so much anymore. It's there's people I don't even want to see or speak to. They feel the same about me because of politics. But I feel like my purpose is to try to spread goodwill and to try to create something of beauty that is also true. Um, I want to. I'm not saying I've always been the most honest guy, um, but basically I have been, and I just think honesty is very important. And you know, the times I've engaged in dishonesty have not ended well,
Right.
and I just see people, causing a hell of a lot of trouble just because they're not being honest for whatever reason.
So then
So,
what makes life hard for you? What's the hardest thing you think about living?
uh, well, I don't know. I'm in pretty good physical shape. Sometimes, just having to move around with arthritis, it's kind of difficult, but that's not that big a deal. The most difficult thing about life, um, I guess, it's just trying to earn enough money to be comfortable. That's really the only thing that ever bothers me, and it seems to work
Hmm.
out. But I'm always trying to make sure I have enough gigs and I'm selling enough art to be
Yeah.
able to buy groceries and to pay our bills. But it's like I say, it's working out. But sometimes it gets a bit scary.
So then
But
what's
I just honestly, my life, it's just not hard. I mean, if I take on something hard, I take it on. I seek out, doing strenuous things
mm,
to test my physical self. I've always done that because I find if you'll do, you don't have to do a whole lot of exercising, but if you just have a regular course of it, you'll live longer, you'll feel better. And I see people that don't do that; they won't just sit around all day, and that's just not. I can't stand that. So, but again, I mean, I feel like I have a very charmed life. To be honest with you, I feel like one of the luckiest people on earth. Um, and I ain't got that many years left anyway, and so you can't take it with you, as they say. Uh, so I don't really have much that's hard in my life.
what is most beautiful about life?
Oh man, there's so much. I mean, music, love, looking at my wife, uh, looking out this window here with all these trees around, all kind of beautiful flowers, and seeing my kids.
Do you have a favorite element in nature that you really like?
Yeah, I do. I like the wind.
Why do you like the wind?
Well, it just, it moves, it cools you off. It makes things move. It's kind of kinetic. It brings um, different smells with it, and like a day on a day like today where it's like 95 degrees and you get a nice wind blowing. That's a wonderful thing. Um, I like some rain. I've always liked snow. I like running water, rivers in particular. Um, I like to get in the water. These are all things, natural things. This all pretty much natural stuff. I guess if you're talking about nature. I mean, but there's so much, watching a garden grow or watching, flowers.
Do you garden?
I do a little bit, but Linda really, she mostly does garden. She's a great flower grower.
Yeah.
Um, she's had nurtured a bunch of blueberry bushes. They didn't do very well this year because we had to prune them and stuff. But that's been what she's been doing that for years, and I like watching the blueberries come out, um, and of course eating them.
I bet you she makes something good with them. Does she make pie or
Oh yeah, pancakes,
pancakes?
cakes, like these kind of cobblers.
Mm-hmm.
They're good too. Just grab a big old handful, throw them on some yogurt or some ice cream, whatever.
That's yummy. I
And
like.
like I have these walking trails around our property. We got about 7 acres, and
Oh wow.
uh, yeah, it's a lot of it's just is woods. But I go by those bushes, especially on a hot day, get a handful of them, pop them in my mouth while I'm walking, and food is a great pleasure too. I never, well, I don't use alcohol. Um, I used to. I just never. I'd always wind up on the bad end of it. So it's not been that. Thank God. I think that's one reason I'm healthy is because I don't drink, and I had long periods of time where I didn't. Uh, but yeah, I mean, I enjoy food a lot, but not to gorge on, but for certain times of the day, like a bagel in the morning with a cup of real strong black coffee,
Oh, you
honey
like
on.
black coffee, huh? No cream,
Oh
no.
yeah, I like my coffee the way I like my presidents, black. I like the one we got now too. A lot of people don't, but I do. Us old guys stick together. But yeah, and then like Linda also is a hell of a cook. Um, so and we like to go out to restaurants,
Yeah.
but there are very few anymore that I trust. It's probably down to about 3 or 4 that we'll go to. Charlotte used to have. It still has some really good restaurants, but you just never can tell what kind of service you're going to get. And we've had some bad experience, so I just kind of stick with the ones we know. Where do you live?
Oh, I live in Virginia.
Where?
Um, 50 minutes outside of DC, Northern Virginia.
I know Northern Virginia. Yeah. I went to school up there in Waynesboro,
Oh yeah, my
um,
sister went there.
Fairfax Hall.
No, not there, but she went to a school that was named Waynesboro, but I think that was in Pennsylvania, so it might
Yeah,
be.
that's in Pennsylvania. That's a different.
Yeah.
It's up 81 a little bit.
Do you
Yeah,
ever
I
do,
want.
do you ever
Go
do
ahead.
any gigs up here? DC?
No, I hadn't. I played some of my very first ones up there it wasn't very good. It's a long way to go. You know, if it was somewhere, you know, I could find somewhere good, I'd go. But it's pretty. I go where you know people want me. I've just hadn't had anybody up there ask me to come. And you know, if it was the right deal, I probably would.
So then, if there's something you want to see change about the world, what's one thing?
Well, I want wars to stop. Um, you know, I'm watching Ukraine. I'm totally in with Ukraine. But my God, I mean, it's just, and it's like the bully down the street. You know, there were bullies that you just, when I was a kid, you just had to face them. You know, you could, you know, maybe you could run and hide, but you know, there's always a time where you just have to fight back, and you know, that's what I see them doing. And if you didn't have people like Putin and Trump and some of these other strong men, uh, so-called strong men, trying to inflict their will and exploit other people, you know, the world could be a very beautiful place. It's insane to me that we don't deal with global warming. It's so obvious. I mean, in 1970, spring day in Chapel Hill, I walk out, it's Earth Day, and all these, you know, they weren't like weirdos. These were, you know, people saying, look, here's what we're doing to the planet. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. You know, I was out working in, you know, digging ditches and stuff, working on a garbage truck. And I'm like, yeah, it's hot as hell. And it's just not getting any better. And we know all this stuff. We know what we should do. But people have been, we've just been guided in the wrong direction by people who are looking out for their own interest rather than the total good. It's like the Curtis Mayfield song, People Get Ready. There ain't no room about the train, uh, you know, to Jordan, the train to heaven. There ain't no room for a hopeless sinner who would harm all mankind just to please his own or to save his own. And that's just so true. That's what, you know, every time I sing that, we play that song, and, you know, I see Trump's face right there. And then behind him, all these industrialists and coal companies and oil companies and, you know, chemical companies and, you know, arms manufacturers. We're insane. I mean, our world is just insane. And it's more violent than I've ever seen it. And it's like, you know, what we did in Iraq has come back to our own streets now, to where Americans are just, you know, killing each other randomly and with no explanation or reason, just because we have all these weapons out there. Our In this country, our soul became sick. We were very spiritually sick. So I mean, it's a big thing. You say, what would I change? I mean, a hell of a lot. But it's just I think it's pretty hopeless, to be honest with you. So I just try to live in my own life and try to, you know, do what I can, you know, to help with these things that concern me. I mean, I own a weapon, um, and I have ammunition, but I've got it hidden away. I don't want my granddaughter to even know what it is. But you know, the way things are, I think, well, there may be a time I need it. God forbid, but you know, I'm not going to go down without a fight. But I'm not worried about, you know, criminals, or I'm worried about fascists doing like they did in Spain or Germany or the Bolsheviks in Russia. And I see a whole lot of it in America now, where, you know, there's these groups of people that just feel like they have a divine right to inflict their bizarre views and lifestyles on other people.
Do you have a time period in history that you wish we could go back to that's your favorite?
You know, in my life, not really. I guess because I just love being alive, and like I was saying, I see all this other stuff, but my own life right now, I like it. I like where I am. I don't like how the world is, but I intend to survive. I'm just one way or other, and I'm not. This is all transitory anyway. Uh, I love my physical life, but I realize one day I have to pass on. Being religious as I am, I don't go to church, but I do a lot of praying, and I just try to live my principles. But I fully expect to go on to another plane, another form of existence, and I want to have positive energy. I want to be I don't want to be conflicted and tortured by my past or my sins or chained up with guilt. I want to go into it with an open heart and with, like I say, positive energy, because that's what's talking to you, and that's what's listening. That's what you're talking to me. It's our energy passing forth. It's what it is with human beings. Probably animals too. I mean, more and more. The whole world, it's a holy thing. Life is holy. Um, I just ate some chicken, but I can't help but, thinking about that bird, and I've always wanted to, give up meat, but it just hasn't worked out.
Do you
But
have a favorite book?
well, I know this is going to sound corny, but I really do like the Bible.
Yeah.
I
What do you
love the
like about
book
it?
of I love the book of Ecclesiastes. I think a whole bunch of it's bullshit. It was written obviously to create a power structure for a group of men, because they were men, manipulating that. But I like New Testament. I like the book of Acts. But then there are these other books like On the Road by Jack Kerouac, Look Homeward Angel by Thomas Wolfe, who lived, grew up in Asheville, it's a couple hours away, but being a fellow reading it, he's from North Carolina, he's a Southerner, and he's got some brains, and he's a poet.
Mm.
I read a book like Coney Island of the Mind by Lawrence Sterling Getty.
Mm.
And I like a lot of Harry Crews books, but that's pretty strange stuff.
Well, I was gonna say you mentioned earlier in the interview that Jesus is your spiritual guide, and but then if you believe that most of the Bible isn't true, what stands out to you about the Jesus part that you would believe he's?
Well, let's see the Old Testament was the old Judaic scripture,
Hmm.
and I'm not saying it's not all true, but in fact, there's some amazing truths in, like I said, Ecclesiastes,
Hmm.
um, which is King Solomon. He's in his last days, and he's just reflecting on life, and it's very true, very
Yeah.
honest. But the New Testament um, was written by men about 200 years after Jesus died. So he didn't write it. I mean, but his teachings, as they were passed on, I guess, orally, inspired the writing. So you have this these four books of the Bible: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And there are four different tellings of the life of Jesus and what he said. Um, and I think probably the book of Matthew connects with me better than the other ones. But you have the Sermon on the Mount, and where Jesus lays it out. Here's the rules, or I guess you'd call them rules, but some of it confusing. Some of it I don't necessarily with, but basically the message he gave was of we got to tolerate and love each other. You know, we should not be having wars with one another. We should be respecting one another because God, the Father, created us. So I don't know if that's, you know, it's true to me because I have applied it in my life and I have found it to be true in the sense that I've gotten good results from it.
Mm.
Just as far as um, you know, being alive and dealing with situations that come along in your life, and being able to turn to God in prayer. You know, in my darkest hours, and I've had some, as we all do, have found comfort and deliverance with that. I went to Catholic school. I was raised Methodist, but I spent about 5 years, my earliest kindergarten through fourth grade in Catholic school. And so I have a real devotion to the Virgin Mary, who's a female, you know, component of the religion. She's very important to me. It's because, you know, like I don't take all this stuff literally, but I think she is like a descendant of the Earth Mother that the Romans, um, I guess you'd say they worshipped them. That's a loaded word, but they were their intermediaries.
Mm.
You know, in Catholicism, you don't pray to God directly.
Right.
You got to get you a saint, or you know, and preferably give the church a little money while you're doing it. But you know, really, I mean, like the Virgin Mary, I learned to pray to her as a kid. I remember there was a big statue in this chapel. I'd go there by myself, you know, and pray to her. And I still do that in my worst, you know, in my worst of times.
Do you have a favorite piece of music that you think describes your personality? Like if you were to have a theme, is there a piece of music you think would fit?
If I was to have a what
Like a theme.
for my life, yeah,
Yeah.
there's so much great music. Um, and I mean, that affected by in a lot of different ways. Probably though it would be, but it's Lightning Hopkins song called Mojo Hand,
What's
and
it called?
I think he just, huh?
What's it called?
Mojo, and it's just it's not even about my life, but the way he played the guitar on that recording I got of it's an acoustic guitar, and I think it's acoustic, and he might have a bass player, and it's just down and dirty, and it's the words, you know, they're not. He's talking about going to get a mojo hand so he can control his woman, and you know how bad she's been to him and all, made him sleep out on the ground using a rock for a pillow. I mean, it's not about that. It's about the feeling of that guitar and just the lilting driving of it and
Mm.
the beat. It's very, very primitive. And, you know, I turn to that, you know, when I want to boogie down, have a good time. Um, and it works. And we play that, you know, we don't play it like that in my band, but it's one we pretty much play every time we go out. But God, there's just so much great music. I mean, there's like Puccini stuff. Like from Madame Butterfly. I
Yes.
couldn't tell you what the aria is, but you know, of course, like Nason Dorma, that's been overplayed a bit, but It's just so much. I can't pick out one thing. Just like you asked me about books. I mean, I'm thinking back like Camus, The Stranger, reading that under the covers in military school, and just being like, my God, this the way he writes is so concise. Um, Cormac McCarthy, some of his like Blood Meridian.
Mm.
I was very knocked out by the way he used language. Um, I don't really read many. I don't really read novels much anymore. Though I read some poetry here, but I read a lot of history.
Mm.
I spend too much damn time on the internet. Really, that's.
I think we all
But
struggle
I
with
read a
that
lot of books in my
nowadays.
life. Huh?
I said I think we
So
all
what?
struggle with that nowadays. The internet is
Yeah, it is.
distracting.
It's so much a part of my work, and it probably is for you too.
Yeah. Well, David, I don't have any other questions for you. I've gotten to know a lot about you, which was the hope. So I thank you so much for all the time you took.
Well, I appreciate your interest. I'm very happy that you want to know something about it.
Oh yeah.
Maybe I'll find out more about you sometime.
Absolutely. You can interview me. I'm gonna stop the recording.